This is Philip Booth of Philip Booth Knives, and you're listening to Bladeology.
All right, so we're going to jump into this like we do every week. Welcome to another episode of the Bladeology podcast. We've been out for a little while. This will be our first episode of 2020. Pretty exciting. This will be the first episode of our second year doing this. We are on with a special guest. We're going to make sure everybody's here. I'm Jeremiah from PVK Vegas.
Nick Truprin of NCC Knives.
Elijah Isham of Isham Blade Works.
Jason Luma of Luma Blades.
Killer.
Nice.
So Jason, we convinced you to get on here with us and talk about knives and get going. What's good in this new year? What are you working on? What do you got on the bench?
Working on a new design. It's a frame lock clipper, and it's called the Tantrum. Just trying to I actually sitting in front of me, I have a extra large version of it and a smaller size version of it, and I'm trying to dial my way through the prototypes and everything like that. So that's my most current that I'm working on.
Nice. So you're going through that prototyping phase, figuring out all the details and mechanics out?
Yeah, well, the prototyping for me generally doesn't wind up being a super difficult thing. It's just a matter of I just use very, very basic materials and don't take it to a higher level of finish. I just, make sure and just do some testing and make sure that everything is good to go.
Mechanically sound.
Mechanically, all the proportions, everything like that is good to go before I actually delve into, doing pieces with, nicer materials and stuff like that.
I got you.
Is that recent one you finished with the detent balls and the pocket clip?
Yeah, that's a funny story on that one.
Gotcha. No, so you said you were working on pro, so I don't know if it's a new one or it was the one you were just doing.
Yeah, that's the model that I was just doing. That's the most recent. I'm working on the large now. It's funny because the smaller ones used to be the harder ones to do, and now the larger ones, it's just more surface area, I guess. I don't know.
I haven't made a large knife in a while.
Yeah, I'm not the hugest fan of giant knives myself.
Yeah, everything I make's about 2.5 inches to 3.5.
Yeah, that's the sweet spot right there.
My old 3 3/4, 4-inch models I've long retired.
Yeah. Well, this one's got like a 4.5-inch blade.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's huge. That's pretty
It's always
big.
good to step outside that wheelhouse and just go huge.
Yeah, I just went big with it because I do have a couple of customers that like really large knives, and they were bugging me, and I figured why not scale up the same one and just do it, and if they like it, I'll take care of it.
I'm just shot in the dark. 50 Shades of Slash.
Oh man, I was just about to say that.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, is it him?
No, it's not him. It's not
okay.
him. I do know him, but there's there's a few guys out there.
Just looking for that giant one, huh?
Just like the big stuff, and that's cool. I mean,
that's a huge part of custom knives, right? I mean, that's you can kind of have them any way you like, as long as someone's willing to build it for you.
Yeah. Hey Nick, I had a question for you, Nick. What'd you think about that clip?
The shape of it, or the whole, the addition of the detents?
No, the detents.
It still look finished. I know why he did it. I've done the same thing. Right? Yeah, I've done it a handful of times too, contouring it and just blowing through it.
Yeah.
Back in the day when I used to do all the blind hardware before I had a CNC, and it was always 80 thou, and knowing it's always 80 thou, but I used to just do it by hand and to do blind tapping. It always vary a little bit. And the worst thing ever was when I contour a frame and you start seeing that little pinhole, and you're like, oh no, that's not a speck of dust.
I didn't see the pinhole till I blasted it. It just blew it through. I was yeah, it was.
It was just sheet metal was there.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, well, I got to save this.
That's what
Sometimes you just gotta recover it.
Well, as they all used to say,
Accentuate
old school makes say,
mistakes.
no, there's never a fucked up knife. It's just a smaller one.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought it was just there's just new designs.
Yeah.
Well, for folders, it has to be a new design. For fixed blades back in the day, if you fuck it up, just make it smaller.
Oh, there you go. All right. Just a little shorter of a tip, no problem.
Yeah.
Pocket size EDC, totally fine.
I have been working on fixed blades too for a few customers. I don't normally do fixed blades, but
Oh, I saw one you were working on, like the pocket fixed blade, the smaller EDC actually.
I'm actually kind of getting into the pocket fixed blades. They're actually pretty nice. I mean, I carry one now with my folder, and I like it because the way the carry's set up, you can't even feel it in your pocket in the leather sheath. It's like a deep carry fixed blade.
That's what I used to carry for the longest time in New York because it was easier to carry in the folders for the laws. And I was going to plan on making some, but I had 6 designs made and a CAD file, and that file is just missing. I haven't looked at it in a year, but I was trying to find it over the last month while I've been sick, and it's gone. I don't know what happened to it, but it was 6 like perfect designs that I really liked.
I think more like small EDC fixed blades might be coming back into popularity this year.
Yeah, I mean,
I think I start to see like more and more of them recently. I don't know why.
A lot of people are liking them.
Yep.
You know, it started just as a whim. Hey, you know what? Let me make a fixed blade version of my folder. That's what I want to do. You know, and I try to make. I try to make them as close to my folders as possible, so that you have to like. The only way you could tell is if you look at the spine. You know, so that's
because you got the pivot in there and everything.
Yeah, I do the pivot. I do everything. You know, I don't know. I just thought that's cool to do, so that's why I do it. But
I mean, that works. Just rock your personal aesthetic either way. I mean, it's kind of signature, you know.
Yeah,
it's pretty neat. I saw one of those in person that you did. At first, when I saw it online, I was like, the asymmetry of it, knowing that it was a fixed blade, bothered me. And then when I saw it, I was like, it's actually pretty cool.
Well, thank you.
Just the symmetry of stuff bothers me. But I knew what you were going for was for the folder look. But then when I had it in my hand, I was like, I actually like this how it's set up like the folder.
Cool. Yeah, no, it looks cool. I like that. It reminds me almost of like a paring knife, almost like a practical paring knife you might carry.
Right.
But that being said, let's wind it back a little bit. Jason, how did you get tangled up in this mess of knife making? Where did you get pulled into it? Where did you start?
Where I started knife making? Well, you know, just like, you know, ever since I was little, just like any guy that grows up in like the country, you know, you like knives, you know, and they use it for everything, and you know, all kinds of knives. My first knife, my grandmother actually gave me. It was a little tiny pen knife. So my grandparents were from Europe, and it was a little. I mean, it was so comically tiny, this pen knife, and it was just a slip joint, and of course I learned really quick how to handle a knife holding that little thing. But that sparked, you know, my interest in knives. That's, you know, when I was a kid. So fast forward through all my work, my life, my careers, everything. When I worked in law enforcement, you know, carried a knife, used it. The carrier that I always had on me was a Spyderco. The reason being is if you lose it on duty or something happens to it, it's not that big of a deal.
Which model was it?
It was the law enforcement one. It was the all metal one.
Oh, the police model.
The police
model. The police model. Yep. So and
nice.
At that point, believe it or not, you know, we're talking, you know, I became a police officer in my 20s. I knew that, I mean, everyone knows that there's custom everything. So there's like custom guitars, there's custom knives, there's custom fishing reels. But I really didn't know much about the custom knife market. And the funniest thing is where they've had the California Custom Knife Show for ever over there in Garden Grove, California.
Oh yeah.
I was a police officer in that area. So, and I never went to it. It's very funny. So anyway, after I was done with that, I went to I grew up in New York, so I moved back home, and I've always been into, I'm going somewhere with this, I've always been into dirt bikes and motorcycles and just building things. So I became a contractor, started building homes, everything like that. Went on a motorcycle trip to someplace in Pennsylvania on our adventure motorcycles, and there was a custom knife maker that was there at this it's a Tour Tech rally. So he was set up in a little tent in the field and everything like that, and of course I walked over to him and talked to the guy for about a hour and a half, and he explained to me how he made these knives, and I was just absolutely utterly amazed that a person can make a knife. I was always under the impression that you needed all this crazy like equipment, facilities, machinery, everything to make a knife. And I bought a knife from the guy. It was my first custom knife that I ever owned. And went back to my buddy who I went to the rally with. And I was like, you know what? I think I can make a knife. And he said, no, you can't make a knife. I'm like, what do you mean you can't make a knife? And he's like, you can't. He goes, you build houses. You're going to make a knife. You're going to cut it with a saw. What are you going to do? I go, I'm going to make a knife. And he's like, yeah, you're not going to make a knife. And I said, all right, fine. So I waited till we got back, and I hobbled together any type of metal. So I had no metalworking machinery. Borrowed a pick through trash of friends' trash tools to find a grinder, the tools that I thought I needed, and worked at it. I made my first knife, which was like 6 inches shorter than it was supposed to be. Nice. At the end. And then after that, it just...
I was back around.
Yeah.
No mistakes, just smaller knives.
Yeah. After that, it was just snowball, man. I don't know. I was hooked. I don't. It was the ugliest knife ever. I still have it, but it was something I made, and I was just like super proud of it. And I can't even explain how or why that I was hooked on it.
Was it made out of actual knife steel or just some?
Yeah. I did. I did my research a little bit. It's actually 1084. I built a little coffee can forge for it to heat treat it.
Shit, nice.
And, I had a little Craftsman 2x42 grinder that I actually pulled out of my friend's trash can. So that's basically how I started, and then it just, it snowballed, and I just was addicted to it. And next thing you know, I'm full time. So I mean, I don't know how else, to what else there is to say about that as far as.
I mean, everybody kind of falls into it in a different way. I mean, it sounds like I don't know, the way you got into it there was a friendly challenge. I appreciate that. Like, no, you can't do that. Like, no, I'm going to do it. That's what it takes sometimes to get the job done, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to this day, my buddy comes over. He's like, man, I can't believe what you make here in a residential neighborhood.
Oh man, is it the same dude?
The same dude, yeah.
Oh, see, that's even better. He's like, no, you can't make no knives, and then you come back around, you're like, oh,
he's one of my very good customers too.
Oh, shit.
The residential neighborhood thing is also like in Long Island, like even more of a thing.
Wow. Yeah, it's more of a thing. Not that much where I'm at. I'm in a pretty good neighborhood, and I'm very well contained.
That's great. I love that. Now he's a great customer. That's
awesome.
That's how it goes.
So when did the orders start rolling in?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, after all the
orders. So, I was a member of a local internet gun forum for a while because, I'm into shooting, into reloading. I'm a member of a physical gun club where I can go and shoot a private range. And I just started posting some of my fixed blades, and some guys started, everyone really liked them. And, I was just making them and selling them. And a couple of guys would ask for something special, and I'd make them and sell them. And so that was probably 6 months after the first knife I made, but I was part-time. I still ran a construction company, so it was more of a hobby at that point for me. And I made my first knife in 2015 was the first knife.
Oh, okay.
And my first knife, making that bitch fold, the first it was a friction lock. So I was like, let me figure out how to make this thing fold first before I try to add a mechanism in there or something. That was in January of 2016. And then my first actual frame lock that actually worked, which is the ugliest thing ever. But I loved it because it worked, is in April, of 2016. So, 6 months later. And
so not that long ago, really. So you're
I'm
fairly newer maker.
Yeah, I'd say I'm going into my 5th year since I've ever made anything, but it hasn't. And this is going into my 2nd year as a full-time maker.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, all the time before that was part-time because, you learn every day. So, but I was learning to the point where I was proficient enough to where I felt I could go full-time. And that's a whole nother thing. Mm-hmm. Being able to make the knife is, proficiently is one thing, but being able to make it a business and make money at it and make the knife is a totally different thing.
Yeah, that's what we call it. Yeah, that's a pretty big leap.
Yeah.
That's when you actually full on go full depth.
Well, I closed
real stress hits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I had a construction business in the Hamptons where I built big custom homes, and I just closed that down and started making knives.
Wow.
As crazy as that sounds.
A little bit. But hey, you know what? Sometimes at some point I feel like we talk to a lot of makers, and at some point there's something that happens, and you have a realization, there's a tipping point, and you go, oh my God, maybe this is the thing I was meant to do, not this other stuff I've been doing for so long. And I feel like a lot of times knife making is that thing for certain people where they just all of a sudden it clicks. You're like, wait a minute, I can do this and support myself, and this other stuff maybe I was just, I wasn't doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, it's hard. It's difficult to explain, especially to people that don't understand, because around where I live, when people ask me what I do for a living, they're like, "No, really, what do you do?"
Yeah, no, but seriously.
I'm like, I make knives. Yeah, like what? Like cook knives, chef knives? And I'm like, no, I make folding knives. And they're like, well, how can you live around here? How can you do this? How can you, And I even feel that some people look down because of what I do, thinking, oh, he makes weapons or he does this, So it's
exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and it's really difficult to explain to everyone around. By me are all about what you have and money and status, and it's very difficult to explain to somebody. Well, why would you leave a construction company to do this?
It's always kind of strange, trying to tell people.
Sometimes it's even strange to think about because, when you have that a construction business or any business where you're doing positive cash flow.
Like a lot, I would imagine.
A fair amount. What would make you leave that? And the thing, it's very fast paced, very stressful, and it just you wind up chasing after your money and stuff like that. Then
you were building houses, so
yeah. So I was building them for clients, so I had a boss, which is worse than most bosses. And some cases I had two bosses. So you had the guy that hired you or the woman that hired you and their spouse or significant other.
Oof.
Yeah, and a couple things came into a line. My wife has a very excellent job with health, insurance and everything like that. And we had just had a daughter, and it came time to where my daughter was of age to go to kindergarten, but we didn't want to put her in daycare because daycare is very, very costly, and we don't really trust other people with our child. And I don't have much family around here anymore. So I said, well, I'll just, I'm working from home. That's it. This is what I'm doing. So that was like the final decision maker, was making sure that I'm around my daughter. I'm here for her, whether I'm actually hanging out with her or not. It doesn't matter. She knows that I'm always accessible.
That's always good too. Huh?
Yeah,
it's a lot of full-time knife makers out here. That's a similar story all the time.
Yeah. It's like things that allow it to happen. It's like it makes it possible.
And
to do this full time.
I will say this: I work 7 days a week, and I work minimum of 10 hours a day, and I don't feel like I go to work at all.
Yeah, you work when you want, and it's just like you start to work all the time.
Yeah, that's pretty much one of the pitfalls. Yeah, that's one of the pitfalls of having an 11-step commute to your shop.
It's a tough life, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I still got a 25-minute drive and I cross the Verrazano every day, as you know. That's a horrible bridge.
Oh man.
But I really do. The goal is to eventually work from home. I'm trying to work towards that, but. Even though I still have to drive to work, I have a bedroom at the shop, so I'll still just sleep there if need be. And still, like, the hours get ridiculous when you're full time. There's nothing stopping me from working 70, 80, 90, 100 hours a week. As long as I'd rather do that than just sit home and watch TV.
Yeah, I can't even tell you when the last time was I actually really watched TV. Like, right before I go to bed, I just listen to nonsense on TV. I call it mindless television, so it'll be like some silly show.
There you go. Yeah, you gotta, like, it's that transition from, like, the thinking brain to the subconscious brain to move into the sleep mode.
Yeah, I guess.
Now to go back a little, I didn't want to cut you off when you were saying, like, what people's first impression is around here when you tell them knives. It's same thing like kitchen knives, like weapons, like high-end collector grade folding knives, and it's
only
like,
the stabby kind.
And then the following answers within the last year is the same thing. Oh, so like Forged in Fire, like you should be on that show. I'm like, oh my god.
There's always a couple questions you can know. It's like, oh, okay, you don't get it.
Yeah, like, oh god, Forged in Fire. It's in Brooklyn, and then I go, and then like after a while they start pressing. I'm like, I was offered. It's not what I do. I just be made fun of. I don't forge.
Mm-hmm.
Not my bag of tricks, guy.
Yeah, but that's lately all I get. It's, oh, you make weapons? No. Forged in Fire? No. And then you get disappointed. I'm like, well, I'm sorry I didn't meet your dreams and aspirations of what I should be.
The Uber driver. Yeah, that's always the...
the Uber driver.
The Uber driver. Yep. At all the shows, it's like,
it's every question's the same.
Mm-hmm. What brings you to town? A knife show? Oh, well, why knives? I make them. Oh, well, this guy makes them. This guy designs them. This guy sells them. Oh, so you guys are a company? No, not exactly.
It gets even weirder when we're all three together, though.
Yeah, then it's like people are very like stranged out by that. It's all right. So Jason, what was your we're sort of moving through your timeline here, but what was your first custom knife show?
The first custom knife show I ever went to was the New York City Custom Knife Show, of course, because I live in New York.
That's got to be the number one for most of our guests, I think, at this point.
I think so. Is that something you must have known about that already? You were sort of somewhat tied in, or you just sort of... I'm always interested to see how people found out about that show.
Yeah, so I knew nobody. Like, no one around me really makes anything except for, like, home renovations. And, they make money in the financial markets, basically. So I knew nobody that made anything. So I was always on forums or on the internet just looking up things, and I just typed in custom knife shows, and that one came up, and it was within a reasonable amount of time to where I could get to it. And I just drove there and showed up and was amazed.
There you go.
At the work that I saw. That, like, I went there with my frame lock looking to get feedback, and I looked at these frame locks and these folders on the table, and I was just like, oh man. And I'd be like, I should just like pack this in. I don't know.
Like, nah, this is like way outside the wheelhouse.
I was overwhelmed. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, how in the world? I don't even understand.
So this was around 2016, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I just said, all right, well, I knew nothing about show etiquette. It was my first show ever, but I'm a respectful person, so I'd wait till I'd see a maker with no one at their table, no traffic or anything, and I'd walk up, I'd talk to them, and I'd tell them what I was doing, and ask them if they would be willing to take a look at my knife and whatever. And then the first time I gave a knife to a maker, I was like nervous. It was just like, but after that, I just shamelessly would just hand it to anyone that would look at it to get all of it. And I just, what I call is I embraced the suck.
There you go.
Whatever was told, I took like as constructive criticism. And from the makers that were nice about it, I took it as constructive criticism, so, and then I just went back and improved and, went to improve upon it. I mean,
were you familiar with any of the makers at the show at that time, or
just through like YouTubing? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, the first person like I handed the knife to was Greg Medford.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
I'm sure he
told me not
some pretty honest.
He told me not to quit my day job.
Yeah.
That sounds right. That sounds like something that Greg would say.
Harsh advice. Yeah.
Straight up. And I said, well, that's really, okay. But he did also say, your fundamentals are there, everything's there, this is strong. And then I think the next one I went to was Jake Hoback. He was the super nicest, most helpful guy. He was super helpful.
Positive feedback.
Yeah, well, positive, negative, it's all positive, right? You have to just be able to disseminate it. If someone says your knife sucks, okay, that's a negative, but okay, now why does this knife suck?
Right.
That's a positive because you're learning how to fix what wasn't right.
It could also be just like personal preference too, like a style thing. It's not sort of style. So.
Yes.
Yeah, it's always good to have them explain why they don't like it.
Yes.
I'm trying to remember if I had run into you at that show or not, or it was the following year.
I was about to say, Nick, you probably were at that show, weren't you?
Yeah, I've been
going since like 20.
Yeah, I've been at every show since 2009.
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, 2009 was my first. That'd be. Yeah, I guess so.
And that show's been going on since like for 15 years, like that. 20 years.
No, longer than 15 because it was in New York in the early 2000s.
Okay. So about probably 20 or over 20 years.
Over 20 because it was in 03. I think was like the last year for it being in New York. I could be completely wrong, but
That early, huh?
because it was 6 years prior to my first time. Okay, yeah, so it was 03 or 04
Gotcha.
where the last New York one.
Yeah. So I guess
it's
Steve
probably
just
like mid 90s or something like that.
purchased the show then? I'm sure it was different before.
Well, there were two versions of it because it used to be in Times Square, like a really long time ago.
Yeah, so it was kind of like a different show. Okay.
Well, it was more classic because they still have a knife show in Brooklyn. Well, it's more of a get together. It's like every second Wednesday of the month. I haven't been in like 7 years, but it was kind of like that show, more like the March East Coast Classic that they used to do. Because that show used to be in March. It was called the East Coast Classic. It was more fixed blades and traditional knives. And then in November was the tactical. And now they just have just the tactical version.
Mm-hmm. It'd be pretty interesting if they moved it back to Times Square.
Yeah,
I'm kind of for that and not for that at the same time.
I'd love it to be in Times Square, but the tables will cost more.
Yeah,
and
the whole thing would be more expensive.
Yeah, a bit.
It also would never happen because of our laws. The gravity knife is going to get better, though.
Yeah.
The New York show is already pretty touchy with the autos and definitely the ballet songs.
Mm-hmm.
That's all right though. It's still definitely one of the most paramount shows that we have.
So where'd you go from there, Jason?
Yeah, so as far as shows are, as far as in my journey here.
Just after that show, with the feedback that you received.
So after that show, with the feedback I received, I took it again in my nature as a challenge. Like, okay, he told me not to quit my day job. Well, guess what? I'm gonna do my best to get good at this as best as I could.
I thought you were gonna say the following week I sold my business and
he told me not to quit my day job, so I quit it.
Yeah, no, I didn't do that. No, but I set the plan in motion because I obviously didn't have the skill or the knowledge to bring me up to that next level. So
at that time, after that show, when you saw people selling their knives, was it a thought in your head that this was a possibility to work towards a career in it, or you were still thinking like this is just a fun hobby, or it's going to be a fun hobby?
I think mine was like this is going to be a fun hobby, but it would be pretty darn awesome to be able to just do it full time as a career, And again, I'm up to this point, I was all self-taught. So I mean, you know how that is, Nick. You're trudging through, relying on messaging somebody and getting some on how to do things or how to accomplish.
Yeah, I learned back in the forum days.
Yeah, so
I don't know if 06, I guess that'd be already Instagram for a bit, but the forums are still alive. I mean, 16, the forums are still alive back then. Yeah, USN was still quite alive in 2016, I think.
Yeah, and like just learning from a YouTube video or learning from Instagram pictures or just little things, just trying. And like I said, we learn every day. But, I just worked on like first thing I worked on was my design. Like design something to this day that I always struggle with. And I worked on design. I came up with my first folder that actually I was very pleased with, which was it was called the Raven. Is what it was. It was a fairly large knife. I made maybe 10 of them, all by hand, and they took me a long time. Like I was like, man, I can't make money at this if it's going to take me this long to do it. And I said, you know what? Let me look into getting a CNC machine.
There we go.
So I looked into what I felt was in my price range, which is a Tormach. And I got one of those, and then that was a rabbit hole in itself for me. it was like 4 or 5 months of not making knives, but first learning how to do CAD, then learning how to do the cam portion of it, and then learning how to run the machine, which was actually the easiest part once you learn the other stuff. And
the machine's the last 10%.
Yeah.
Setting up.
Yeah.
I always tell people when they ask me how do I get into CNCing, I'm like, don't buy a machine. You got 6 months. Just get the software. That's 90%. You figure that out. The machine's the breeze.
Yeah. So I sat there for like almost 6 months with the Tormach basically in its crate, learning all that stuff. Then I set it up, and I made the first Raven on the CNC machine. It still hang around my bevels, and I like the way it came out. It came out really nice and everything like that. And I made a couple of them, and again, local guys were buying them. Some guys on my Instagram, so I'd make them. And before you know it, I had a little bit of orders built up on it.
There you go.
And I'd use it, fulfilled the orders and everything like that, and everything was cool. And then I was like, okay, so I'm comfortable with making this. This is good. I would like to get some exposure. I believe that this is a very good knife. And so I reached out to Jim Skelton. And I said, hey, would you mind taking a look at one of my knives? And I sent them pictures. I told him who I was or whatever, and I'm relatively new and this, that. And I sent him a picture. He's like, holy crap. He's like, this thing is great. It looks good. I was expecting to see some piece of junk, He's like, yeah. He goes, I'd love to do a video. So I sent a Raven to him to do a video on, and then like after that, I wound up taking like 100 orders.
Whoa!
And
damn, 100 orders, pretty big.
Yeah,
I remember that video. This was back when his videos were getting a couple 100,000 views before they started censoring knives.
Yeah, and
the bronze one, I think.
Yeah, and I shut my books down, like, because people were still contacting me for it. And I said, okay, well, I have enough orders. I've got the machine. I've got everything. This is the time to start going full time. And so I did. And, I fulfilled those orders, and I learned very quickly that books are not something that I enjoy.
There you go. You got to do it to figure that out, though, right? That's part of it.
Yeah, I know. Books are just not something that I enjoy, especially not high numbers. 1 here, 2 there, 5 there, whatever. That's one thing.
I think everyone's made that mistake at some point.
Yeah, I mean, that's everyone's dream, though, right, Nick? You get one model that's a home run that you just got to make. You're talking to the guy that's made the same knife for like 7 years, so that's the wrong guy.
Yeah.
It's larger. It's the MK2.
It's
smaller.
It's smaller.
It never got larger. It started as a large one. And I was like, I made 4 of those. I'm like, that's too big of a knife. Made the MK1. Then 4 years later, it's smaller.
Yeah, and I'm also the type of guy. I don't know why I get bored really quickly. Like if I make like 10 or 15 of a model, I already want to design something else that came into my head. I'll still make the other model, but all of a sudden I'll have new enthusiasm for the new design. Like, I guess the coolest thing for me is being able to take a pile of materials and bring an idea to fruition, I think that's like the coolest thing.
I think that's definitely a part of the process that a lot of people probably identify with. I mean, just looking at like a pile of whatever G10 steel, Mokutai or whatever, and then like a couple days later, you're like, holy shit, there's a functioning cutting object in front of me. Like, that is pretty cool.
Yeah. So then after making the fulfilling all those orders. It took me like 7 to 8 months to fill all of those 100, which was, to me, was unreasonably long amount of time.
Fairly quick based on a lot of guys' standards.
Well, again, coming from like a production construction background, to me, it was like, oh my gosh. So I was like, okay, so I got to figure out, how to streamline myself, how to get myself better at producing. And I actually wound up going backwards in a way, because I want to, like, not use. I got so sick of making the Raven after making all those, I didn't want to make another one. So I designed some new things, and I started moving over to going the handmade route. And it's funny how that happened. The way that happened is I reached out to a maker that lives really close to me. He's an old timer. His name's Sal Manaro, and I reached out to him to try to get to learn some stuff. And he's a great guy. I mean, from that point on, I mean, he's helped me.
Oh wow!
And if you could ask him, and he'll be like, no, I'm not a mentor. We're just both knife makers. But he'll say that, but he knows it. He's my mentor, because he's my go-to for everything. He's come to my shop. He taught me things. He taught me things that saved me 10 years worth of experience of trial and error. And
Definitely a good mentor right there, Sal Manaro.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's the greatest guy. He's just a good guy.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool dude.
Yeah.
Great maker too.
Oh yeah. And he's, very particular, and he taught me a lot of things, a lot of the things that might be getting forgotten, or overlooked. Just little tiny details that I look for, to the point where at this point I'm like neurotic about things. and I understand, because when I first went there, I first show up at his shop, and he's got like this headset on. He looks like a professor. I'm like, whoa, scientist, what's going on here? And now I kind of I understand. So
Sal's a very unique knife maker, in like his knife making style and the way he makes knives. I've been to many maker shops. I've worked alongside quite a few makers. I've seen Sal set up, and he works more like an old school machining engineer. The way his tools are set up and the way his shop is set up than a knife shop, and like you could tell he had a machining background. The way a lot of his stuff is set up, it's like. I learned a lot just from when I used to do full handmade before CNC. I used to see a lot of his setups, and I was like, whoa. Like, one of the first person I ever see use a surface grinder to set a lock with Sal, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting way to do that.
Yeah, that's how I set my locks.
Yep.
But
you also have a really cool shop. Every time you get some new piece of equipment, I send you a message. I'm like, where? We have the same Craigslist. Where the hell are you finding 4 Dunmore drill presses?
Oh, I got another one coming.
I know you suck. Every time I talk to you, I just got a 5th one. I'm like, how?
I got one. I got one coming from. Which one are you talking about? The little ones or the precision?
The little watchmaking precision ones.
Oh yeah, those. You know what, Nick? You don't want one of those. Oh, you might want one for your desk. Then you can't drill titanium with them.
Just seems cool.
Nah. Remember, all the drill bits I use are carbide. Everything under 80 thou.
Seems cool when you don't have it. Once you get it, you're like, oh damn, I can't use this.
I still want one. I want them just for D10s.
But I got a precision Dunmore coming from North Carolina that I bought from Tim Britton.
The Bergmaster, you got 2 of them or what?
But yeah, I got 2 Bergmasters.
Where the hell did you get them at? Those are super hard to find.
Old rebuilt lathes.
Oh yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna have to go out and just blame Sal for this, because Sal got me hooked on all this old machinery. After getting to be in his shop and use some of this stuff and see him use it, I was just like, oh, this is like awesome.
He'd be the guy to know, because it seems like, yeah, he's that kind of,
he just
like his generation, like he knows what's good.
He's just a fountain of knowledge too, you know, and he'll tell you he's not. He'll tell you, well, I'm just another squirrel trying to get a nut, you know. He's so modest, but then I just, you know, he found my lathe for me, my Logan lathe he found for me, and I went and got that, and then the Bergmasters, I'm part of like a kind of machinist group, like vintage machinist group. It's like kind of like that around here, and I think I'm actually the youngest member. So it's a bunch of old guys that like to sell stuff. They like to buy and sell stuff, but they don't use Craigslist and they don't really use Facebook or anything like that. So they sell it to each other.
This is the first time I heard about that.
It's top secret.
Definitely where you
Nick.
get all
They're
that
not in
secret
the
shit.
club.
Yeah,
He goes to me every time. He's like, "Oh, you got to be nice to the old guys." I'm like, "I don't know any of these old guys. I live in Brooklyn. We don't have machinists here."
You need about 20 years on you, Nick.
Oh, wait. There's places in Brooklyn to get machinery.
Oh yeah, you have to know someone, and I don't know anyone here that is in this industry.
Okay. But like, and you got to be willing to just get in your truck or car or vehicle and go, you know, like
Nissan Rogue.
those Clausing 8520s that I got, you know, I got 2 of them, you know, and then the Bergmasters, I went that day when I was told that this other guy wanted to sell them, and I bought both. I think I paid like $800 for both of them.
Oh, I've seen Bergmasters. Those come up, but they're usually like the condition's never really that good. But those do come up. Those Dunmores, they never come up, and they're always expensive. And when they do, they're usually gone. And somehow you have like 5 of them.
Yeah, I don't actually have 5 of them. I have
7.
I have those little ones. I have 2 of the little tiny ones. But I have the Dunmore Precision Drill, which is a heavy duty, high speed drilling machine for drilling. Like I drill 32 thou holes, you know, through 0.2 titanium on it. You know.
Yeah, I just want it for detents.
Yeah.
So there's not really any good small.
You don't set your detent in your program?
No, I still the Haas makes my handles, roughs out my blades, but like I still set lock and detent by hand. I have a very specific action that I tune very stiff detent, and I've tried on the CNC a few times. There's too many stacking tolerances to do lock and detent. It's so fine that I just do it by lock by hand. Oh, lately my dad does them, and I tune them. So he sets it with a 55. So just the initial set, and grinds in the lock initially with the rough grip belt, and then I finish it with a 220 and then tune the detent to the final spec with the different size drill bits.
Nice.
So
you know
that's my human CNC for that part.
That's cool. Yeah, so my Tormach basically sits idle. And
yeah, when I first met you, that's when you just finished the Ravens. And you're like, "Oh, I got a Tormach." I was like, "Oh, cool." We talked about CNC, and then like the next time I saw you, it's like, "Oh yeah." So you just kind of stopped using those Tormachs, and then like I think you said you bought a second Tormach, or was it someone else?
Yeah, no, I have 2 Tormachs.
Yeah, I remember you bought a second Tormach, but I'm like, Sal, you're just like doing handwork now. You like backtrack. He's like, "Yeah, I like this one more."
Yeah, someone to get a Haas.
It's another thing hard to explain, you know, like in hindsight, yes, I should have just bought a Haas right out of the gate. But there were just so many variables there at that point. I just didn't feel these Tormachs were not that expensive in comparison to getting a Haas and getting everything up and running and going with that at the time.
The Tormachs made no sense to me. I looked into them like for like $3,000 more. I got my Haas set up. I was like, no, I'm not dealing with it.
They work, but you know, you know, they
do work. That was they work.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's all. Now with Tormach's new pricing, it's not worth it. Versus Haas's new pricing, it's totally not worth it because it's worth it to get the Haas. But back when I bought it, I mean, they weren't as expensive as they are now. So I mean, they sit idle. It's not saying that I don't use them, but if I do use them, I'll use them as like a very accurate water jet to cut like micarta, so I could put a vacuum on it and I'm not inhaling those fumes, or to cut carbon fiber or something like that. But yeah,
it's an interesting progression to dive in on the CNC. And then to sort of step backwards, give or take, into the handmade, because usually it's the opposite. Usually it's you start messing around and you're like, oh, hell with this, and then people get CNC, and now you have two of them and lots of old machinery, which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, it's a little weird, I guess.
Yeah, honestly, it is. When I was talking to him through the time, and I saw him as he was changing. At one point, I remember you were trying to do half and half, but I got weird with the modeling. Do half CNC and other models that are full handmade.
Yeah.
But then it gets weird, like explaining to people, because I've tried that. I tried that at one point too. I was like, oh, these are more CNC, these are more handmade. But then like no one really followed my work enough. They bought my knives, they never followed it enough to realize the difference, and they never really cared.
Right.
They still pay it. I was like, well, there's no point. I have to set one track. And like, honestly, now I can't backtrack. Like, I got quick enough with the CNC. If I got to make a quick prototype, I'll just throw a slab in there and cut it out with tabs, grind off, bandsaw off the tabs, cut off the tabs, and then do whatever I got to do. But I don't think I could go backwards. I don't even think I have all the tools anymore. I don't even have a manual mill anymore. I had a manual mill for a while and then just sat around. So where I just used the Haas as a manual mill with the jog, because it was just a great manual mill if I needed it quickly to be so, because it was rigid. And I got rid of the manual mill. But now I almost bought one of those Clausing 45s. One showed up in Jersey right across the bridge. Yeah. Thought about it, but I was like, I don't want to go to Home Depot, get the truck.
Yeah.
Yeah, the $20 an hour truck.
I've got $4
It's $20. Yeah, it's $20 an hour when you stay in the borough. The moment I cross that bridge, it's like, it gets a lot more expensive.
That is so stupid.
Yeah, I mean, to be totally honest, it's like I enjoy hand making a lot, and not saying that I didn't enjoy using the CNC. I just all the time that I just what I didn't enjoy was all the upfront time that you have to put in.
Yep.
And then you're locked in, so that model's got to be a go. You know what I mean?
Exactly why I can't make I can make prototypes here and there, but if I'm doing CNC and I'm setting up the fixtures, I'm not going to make 5 of this thing. I got to make usually I could get away with 50 to where it's worth it still.
Yeah.
But it's never just 50. Like the reason I'm making the MK1 for song is the fixtures was ready, the CAD was ready, and I just kind of kept getting free parts essentially because my water jetter was messing up, and he would give me he'd comp the blades and I just have to pay for handles. Then next time he comped the handles and I paid for blades, and I ended up making an extra 200 that I didn't plan on, and I've been stuck with the same thing. So now I'm prototyping new stuff right now that I'm going to announce soon, and it's just a joy. Everything it's just new, it's different pattern, tooling, different fixtures, and figuring all that out right now. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, so if you have a model that's like a home run or that's high in demand, the CNC is the way to go. If you want to meet that demand, for sure. That's why I haven't sold them, because there's other things that I could use it for. I mean, I could use it for my motorcycle parts when I break things. So and I can still use it to make fixtures or jigs or whatever the case.
Do you prep your handles on them? Do you do all the hole drilling and stuff like that on there?
No, well, on some models I do. On some models I use it just like a water jet would do it. I'll use it to drill my holes and everything like that, and then I do everything else and cut the outline out. Then that's it's painfully slow for me to watch.
Do you have a tool changer?
No.
Okay.
That's
the next thing you should invest money into is add the tool changer to it. That'll change your entire view on CNC work.
It's Sal.
No, well, when I first tried a CNC out in someone's shop, it had a tool changer. It was Brian Nadal's. I saw it. I was like, this is great. The tools would automatically change. You don't have to babysit it if you're confident with the code. And it's not as slow because you don't have to manually make sure that and adjust each tool. You set up all, in my case, 10 tools, and it just kind of went. And then I backtracked. I went to Haas Open House, and they had a tool room laid in there they let me use. And that one didn't have a tool changer on there, and I used it for 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, this is stupid. I understand that if I buy one, it has to have a tool changer. Yeah. And that was one thing. Everyone I would speak to, like, oh, it's so slow, and you got to sit on there and change out tool and reset tools. I'm like, yeah, I don't know how that works. I just set up all 10 at once.
With that.
Yeah. So the problem with the Tormach and the tool changer is they're notorious for malfunctioning, and they're extremely expensive for what they are. So that's why I don't have a tool changer and that's why I have
the cheapest, easiest way of robotic automation.
Yeah. No, I mean, I do agree. But I also
it's satisfied though.
Yeah, I recently also started using a waterjet service to like cut my liners or to cut out my frame and my blade shape on some of my models, and that's been great as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, water jetting is definitely, it can be a game changer, right? It streamlines a process. And then it helps you do patchwork.
That's the initial game changer for makers.
Yeah, it's better than using the slitting saw to cut, your lock cut or.
How many times
I cut one lock bar.
Say it again. I'm sorry.
How many times you use the slitting saw on your lock bars?
Oh, quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a bit. I just recently had liners and a couple of frames water jet. So to do the lock bar, I'd use a 32,000 stick slitting saw, and I, drill a 32 thou hole at my start and stop point, and finish it up with a special file that I made to cut it so that you didn't see the overshoot of the hole. Some makers have a big hole at their stop point and their start point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to clean that up, I made a special file that I could get into that, 32 thou slot and just sit there and saw it out. It would take a while. I was taught that by Sal.
Yeah, that's a nice finishing touch, though.
It's a good way to do it, but there's one factor that kind of limits you a little bit is your lock bars need to be straight.
Yeah.
Always kind of like,
Yep.
So the design's a little limited, I guess.
Yes, absolutely.
Kind of.
Yes.
Yeah, I've cut one lock bar out by the mill with a slitting saw, and the day after that, I discovered the water jet, and I never did it again.
It's not that bad. I mean, I have a big Bridgeport style mill that I do that on. And it goes pretty fast. It's not that bad, but it's
I do have the drill press, to be fair.
Yeah, it's not as fast as having it done at waterjet. So the little things like that save a little bit of time.
Yeah, no, I mean, every little bit truly counts when you're doing that.
So now there was the New York show, then the Jim Skelton, and you got a big batch of orders. Then you realized that you kind of hated big batch work like that, and you discovered Sal. Went down to Sal's shop, learned from him, started backtracking and actually liking the handwork aspect of it, incorporating that more into your builds. And at what point did you decide, okay, it's time to do a show? Because that's a big milestone for a lot of makers. Like once they go full time or they're part time, it's like I'm ready to exhibit my work at a show.
It's a turning point.
Yeah, so that would be Blade Show, I guess, 2018 would be the first year.
No, that's when I first met you in person. That's when you had the 25 knives and you were off to the right.
Yeah, 25 knives.
Okay.
Yeah,
But you did great that show. I remember that.
That was the first show I exhibited, and I remember what gave me the confidence, I brought my knives over to Sal and I said, Sal, go through these and tell me what you think. And he didn't say anything bad about it, about anything that I brought. So I was like, okay. So that kind of approval was a huge confidence builder for me personally. And I said, you know what? Nothing to it but to do it. I'm going to do Blade Show. And then I remember when I told Sal I was doing Blade Show, he was like, wow, you're really batting for the moon. You're doing the biggest show for your first show. He goes, I think I started it like the American Legion or something.
Oh man.
Yeah, a little show. I said, yeah, well, whatever. So, I mean, I felt confident in my work. I carried my work, and I judged on people's feedback. Did I ever get anything back that failed or broke or this or that? And no. So I was like, okay, let's try this. So I did it. And I really had a great time at Blade Show, just meeting everybody and talking to everybody, how nice it is to be in the same place with a bunch of like-minded people. It was exhausting, but it was a really cool experience. And so that's what brought me.
I remember that show. You were very happy with the way your show went. I remember me, you, Dave, and Mike were in the pit pretty late talking about random CNC stuff and processes and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think that was Mike was there that year.
Yeah, Mike was there that year. Yeah.
How did you do with the show?
I did good. I think I came home with, out of 25, I think I came home with like 5 knives.
Oh, that's great. What are you talking about?
And then those 5 knives sold within a week of me being home with them.
Nice.
So, yeah, I've been very blessed and fortunate, overall, but to have people that will buy what I make, and that like what I make and all that stuff. And I've been very fortunate at the shows that I've done to do well at the shows.
That's killer. Yeah, I mean, just coming to Blade Show, your first Blade Show, your first real knife show with that many and doing that well, I can't imagine that must have been a great feeling.
It really was. It really was. And all that does is fuel the inner fire more and just make you want to do better.
Yeah, there you go. Right? Yes, go home and step up the game even more to that next level. Was there anybody at Blade Show that you were looking at? Did you wander around at all? Did you get to see other people's knives?
Yeah, so I got to get breaks. I had a lot of help my first year. My friend Eric Luther, who's also a maker, he helped watch my table, and Mike from Ecom Knives, we flew down together, we came together, we stayed together and everything like that, and he watched my table for me a little bit. And I had actually a couple of good friends on the last day. I had a couple of good friend customers that would sit there, so I could leave for a little bit, for a little break to get something to eat. And I got to walk around and stuff like that. And unfortunately I really didn't take the time to go and sit down with or talk to a lot of makers during the show hours and handle stuff, because I kind of felt guilty that even though they agreed to watch my table, I felt guilty that they were watching my table for me type thing. So I kind of rushed through and I'd see a couple of things and then come back and then, so I mean,
nice.
I unfortunately I didn't get to really handle a lot of people's work that year. I was really overwhelmed, just total. It was like a whirlwind for me.
Yeah, I mean, I could imagine.
And then where'd you go after that for that show? When you came back home, where did you new model? Did you planning next show, or like, when you came back and like when I remember after my first show, I came back with 110 different plans for something new, a different show, or how I'm going to do it next time, because I didn't expect it to go the way it did.
Yeah. So when I came back, I said to myself, you know what, next year I'm definitely doing the show again next year. I'm going to get a booth instead of a table, and I'm going to see what other shows that I can reasonably do, because I enjoy.
Did you end up with a booth?
Did I say it again?
Did you end up with a booth? I don't remember you being at one.
I had a booth this last year one. I had a booth.
Oh, okay.
So
This year?
Yeah.
Or 2019?
Yes. So 2019, and then I have a booth for this year.
2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a booth this year for the first time too. It was interesting.
But it was, what was interesting to me was that it doesn't come with a table or chairs.
You gotta rent that. It's extra.
You gotta
rent them.
We took an Uber. We took an Uber somewhere to get them.
I had no idea. I just ordered them like online and had them drop shipped to one of my friends' houses that was going to the show, and they brought them for me.
You got to pay for extra lighting and electricity too. I mean, they really they get you for that stuff.
Everything. You just get the carpet, and that's it.
Yeah.
So I got the booth like 3 weeks before the show, and I didn't know what happens with a booth. I knew you don't really get anything. I was like, I'm just going to rent it. And I go up to the renting area, and they're like, "Oh, it's $250 for a 6-foot table." And I'm like, "You are high." She's like, "I'm like, you are high." And I'm like walking away. She goes, "Sir, do you want the table?" I'm like, "Oh, I just gotta go make a phone call." Like, I'm not paying $250 for.
Oh, yeah, I can make a phone call.
Tables.
Yeah,
I called you, Elijah. I'm like, "We're not paying."
Yeah,
And,
like, hey, can you pay for this real quick? I'm like, excuse me.
No, I called you because you were sharing the booth with me. I'm like, we're not renting. We have to go take an Uber to somewhere.
And I don't think we took that back, right? We just kind of left it there.
I gave it to Gapco. I'm like, we weren't going to take the table. It was just like, it's like a $50 table. And then we had 2 inflatable couches.
yeah. I gave mine to Chad Nichols. You're like,
Yeah, I was like, I'll take it back. I'm renting it for $250 for the goddamn folding table. I was like, you're insane.
Hell
No, lady.
Next year, well, this year rather, we should just like have like a cutting competition. Have everybody like cut it up or something. I don't know. Make a spectacle out of it.
There you go.
yeah,
It was fun to swanton dive and like pop the inflatable mattress though with 2 knives, Wolverine style at the end.
Mm-hmm, and not film it. Yeah.
Wow.
No, we didn't film it, but I
that
did
one
myself.
Yeah, so when I got back from Blade Show in 2018, so those were my plans, and then the fire was lit to just come up with a new model and just keep progressing and just keep. I just want to be the best that I can be. So I that's just my personality and the way I am. So I just.
Yeah, it's good. Competition. Go for it.
Well, it kills actually productivity in a way too, because I'll travel down certain rabbit holes for days sometimes just trying to figure something out, and it's crazy, you know.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. I totally don't do that.
You don't?
Of course I do. That's what I do, unfortunately, every day.
Yeah. So.
Like, I can make this picture 2 seconds quicker. Let's figure this out.
Oh yeah.
4 hours later, I just lost all that extra time.
Yeah. So see, mine is mathematical formulas to come up with for the perfect detent and just all different things, and it's it's very. I get very precise with things like that. And in the end, I may use what I figured out, and I may not.
I should go back to the same way every time because there's only so many ways you could do a detent. I used to spend a lot of time in designing and drafting fixtures before. The CNC, that's still a lot of it is fixtures, but there you could kind of do anything you want for a fixture when it comes to CNC. The sky's the limit. But when I used to do manual milling, I used to take a lot of pride in my fixture setups. I used to have a lot of complex, dedicated fixtures to do all sorts of things in my mill. And I didn't know anything. I just kind of came up with on milling wise. When it was manual, just everything was my imagination. I didn't know any rules or just kind of figure it out. I'm like, this makes sense.
That's cool. Yeah, I just,
That was my favorite part, was the fixture designing for manual milling, I think, and knife making.
that's cool.
But just figuring out like the process of making the fixture.
No, well, when on the CNC, you can kind of make any fixture to hold the part any way you want, because then you just have to hold the part and make sure there's clearance, and then the head will move however you want it to do whatever you want the pattern to be. Manual milling, the pattern is depicted on the fixture setup. So if I want a straight line and then I want a perpendicular line, another line at 45 degrees, or an arc or a circle in there, it's all dependent on my fixture setup. So I had a lot of intricate, elaborate fixtures to hold the parts at various angles and repeatability to make sure I could mirror it. So that way I could do the same pattern on the lock side and the show side. Special fixtures for my rotaries to do different types of counterbores and bearing pockets and pivot collar pockets. At one point, I have 3D milled on my manual mill, which is it was a complex, weird fixture thing I got at an auction that I figured out how to set up. But I think the most proud thing I did was have a universal fixture to use end mills as counterbores, which was a basic one, but it just saved a lot of money. It's because I was able to counterbore everything with end mills instead of counterbores, which, as Jason knows, are expensive as hell.
Well, if you have a surface grinder, you can just make them.
Bam.
That goes back to him having all the cool tools.
See, Nick, if you
I was
had a
a
surface
See,
grinder.
Nick, if you
13-year-old kid
had
in
a surface grinder, buddy.
It's just a surface grinder.
Yeah, bud. Just get one.
Get that into a
Go on
basement.
Craigslist. Spend like 30 minutes. Just get something going.
Cruise on
Call somebody
through.
up. Just go over there and pick one
Connecticut,
up.
grab the Home Depot truck.
Throw it in
go
the
get a
back of the
surface
truck,
grinder.
just pull it in there, and then somehow get it into a basement.
No problem. You've got a shop. It's
Just
good.
kind of like throw it downstairs. It's fine.
Yeah, just roll it down. No big deal.
There's a guy right like in Jersey that has a Dunmore tool post grinder that's actually for that.
There you go. See?
And
You got a friend with go get it.
A Dunmore tool
It's
post
called
grinder?
peer pressure,
For the
man.
counterbore
Just
thing,
tape.
yeah. I'm looking at an end mill grinder right now. I'm trying to get one of those to I get a lot of
sharpened end mills?
satisfaction. No, but I get a lot of satisfaction I think it's the Jew in me, to be honest.
At least
So
that's
some of
about
my end mills are longer than need be. They'll be like a half inch of cutting area, and I'm only using the first eighth inch. And I get so much
I'm so
satisfaction.
confused right now.
I'll explain. So if I'm
Don't
making
worry,
the eighth
he'll
inch cut,
explain.
the end mill has a half inch of cutting area,
Uh-huh.
and I wear out that first eighth inch or chips. I get a lot of satisfaction of cutting off that first eighth inch and having another fresh eighth inch, and then doing that 4 more times, and then I get a lot of life out of the same end mill.
Yeah.
I guess so. I don't know. It's one of the most satisfying things ever when I cut it perfectly to where it still works. I'm like, yeah, I just saved myself another $15.
Yeah, it's all about saving.
In the grand scheme of things in CNC, it's not a lot of money for the amount of money and tooling I go through a week is insane, but it's just very satisfying.
Yeah.
Now I want a proper grinder to actually chop it off properly and not use a Dremel.
Yeah.
Or is it cutoff wheel?
It's
Wow.
essentially like a bench grinder and a
Yeah.
post that kind of circularly cuts things off.
Oh,
So you're saving like $4 to make like a $900 custom knife. I got you, kid. I got you. All right.
It saves me like $90 a week probably,
Okay.
but it's more of the satisfaction of it working.
No, I got you. All right.
But it's come in handy when I run out of tooling. I'm like, oh crap, and then like I'll go through the scrap bin. I'll be like, this has some life if I cut this off.
Thankfully.
If there is one tool machine that you could have, what would it be? There's a question for you.
There you go.
A bigger tool changer.
Besides your CNC.
Okay, yeah.
Gonna be an attachment for this seat? No. Right now I'm on the hunt for a 2 or 3 axis surface grinder.
Okay. Okay.
But if we're talking big machinery, I really like anything that grinds blades, like a burger.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But yeah, but a surface grinder could do that. Right now, I'm looking for an automated surface grinder pretty badly.
Okay.
A 2-axis surface grinder?
Well, 2 axis, they're all over the place, so it moves in X and Y, but you have to lower the head all the time.
Yeah.
A 3 axis, the head will go like John EOS.
Oh,
he has
like that one.
axis.
Okay, I got you.
But that one's like a really expensive. You get used one, like a 3 axis used one will go for like 10 grand to 15, 18. You can find 2 axis ones anywhere from 2 to 6. There's quite a few of them for sale right now, but they're all I called all of them. They're all in like where I have to get them out of there myself, and they're in complicating spots. And it was just
they're in like the back of a warehouse behind like 10 other machines.
Essentially that. And like I've done that once before, and it was a hassle. I don't want to deal with it. It's not the best time for me to go do that, but soon at some point I'm gonna have to get one of those. I have to go to Jersey every time and use a manual one.
3-axis
One of them fancy
surface
boys.
grinders.
Yeah, when you have to surface grind 150 blanks. I'll go surface grind at my buddy's who has a manual. I'll do like 100 or 150 blade blanks. It'll take me like 2 12-hour shifts, but then my right shoulder is pretty much unfunctional for about 5 days because his X like is kind of locked and it doesn't freely move. Oh. And I fixed it before, but it's in the same areas as woodworking shop, so it cakes up and it gets stiff again, and it kills my shoulder. But it's my only option.
That's how you get yoked out, man. You get work out on the service grinder.
Unproportionally yoked out. Mm-hmm. Just one arm.
Just one arm is super jacked.
I'm shocked.
What's up?
Send it out.
What?
I'm shocked you don't send the blades out.
Sometimes I do. This last batch.
That's a lot of surface grinding.
This last batch I did, and it was a little expensive, to be honest.
Yeah.
For like 50 cents more, I could have gotten double this ground.
Right.
I didn't expect them to be that much, but so...
that extra 50 cents is like, damn, I don't know.
No, for the extra 50 cents, I could have got double this grinding, which is a better service. I thought the service grinding would have been like half the price of what I actually paid.
Yeah.
And it kind of got to the point where it's like, I just paid what I could have got a freaking 2-axis for.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little upsetting. I was like, oh, God damn it.
Yeah, see, my thing is, since most of my knives are on washers, my thing is I want a lapping machine.
I got one and I sold it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I'd say that's almost like, if we're doing like high-end, very tight tolerance folders, a lapping machine would probably be more necessary than a surface grinder.
No, you can't lap without a surface grinder.
I know, but like just having the extra instead of like just going from a service grinder to the build, just that extra step of lapping it.
Yeah, but I bought the lap and then I got a good deal on it. I actually made $200 in selling it, but I bought it and sold it within about a month.
Man, if I had one of them, I would have kept it.
Well, if the parts are warped at all, it doesn't really work because it's meant for minimal removal. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of, you want to surface grind it and surface grind out the warp, and it's just for good surface finish and true flatness. If the parts have to be priorly prepped. So surface grinding won't make parts flat either. It'll make parts clean, but if they were warped, it'll stay warped. So ideally, you would double this grind, then lap. And that's where I didn't realize that's what's going to have to happen, and I just sold it.
Elijah, it's part of a process when you're flat. It's like Nick said, you got to do all of it. So like your titanium, if it's warped, you got to physically, like you bend the lock bar, you got to bend that frame to where it's close before you even start surface grinding. Then you got to make it flat and parallel. And then after that's all said and done, especially if you're using washers, I've found you got a hand lap or lap flatten on an automated lapping machine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember who it was that told me. Some maker. It was like titanium was pretty much never actually flat. It's just the screws and everything that like bring it together.
That was definitely me because I complained about that daily.
Sometimes
it was you afterwards. Yeah. It was an older maker.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the titanium, sometimes it warps.
Yeah, if you sandblast one side and forget to sandblast the other side, it'll warp. And you have to sandblast the other side to bring the other side to come back in. There's just so much stress in it. Yeah. With CNC machining it, as I machine it, it warps. I face it, it warps. I breathe on it and change the temperature, it warps.
If you take too heavy a cut on it, it'll warp. Yeah. But you learn to work with it and work around it. But that I'm going tool hunting actually next week. I'll let you know if I find a little drill press there, I'll buy it for you, Nick, and then you can just
send it.
You can just buy it for what I bought it for.
Just send me a photo if that's something I'm looking for. I need like something that's accurate so I can run like
the the little watchmaker drill presses. But I'm telling you,
Nice.
the little watchmaker drill presses, you're not going to want to drill your D10 on one of those. They run.
So what do you use them for?
I use it for phenolics and stuff like that, like carbon fiber or G10.
Oh.
Or, you know, it'll drill through it, but it's not a comfortable sound as you're drilling these tiny bits to it. You're just like going. You're thinking to yourself the whole time, "Am I going to have to stick this part in ferric to get?"
Then that's not what I want. I thought they were great for D10s because they're high speed and they don't really chatter out, or they're pretty.
Yeah,
the runout's tight.
The precision drill press is the one that you want, which is the big version of that.
Oh, okay.
But if I find
a bigger quill,
if I find one, because like I said, I'm going to a tool shop that's a guy that was in business for like 50 years. He just wants out. So.
Well, yeah, I also bought is it in downtown Brooklyn by any chance?
It's not, but it is in the state of New York.
Oh,
Nice.
I heard about
Keep those sources close.
Every time
Somewhere in the state of New York.
He never gives me the right.
it's in Buffalo.
No, I heard about a machinery sale in downtown Brooklyn coming up. That's why.
I mean, it's on the East Coast. I'll be honest with you. It's somewhere on the East Coast. Like, oh, okay, I got you. All right. Okay.
I need that. I also bought a burger in the past. I didn't like it. I ended up selling that as well.
Yeah, a lot of guys don't like it, but a lot of guys tend to use it for what it wasn't intended to use for.
The drill and tap setup, yeah. If you do clearance, tap, size, and tap, yeah. But for what I was thinking, I wanted it set up for undersized ream chamfer, but they're not really accurate heads like everyone made them out to seem when I first looked for one.
Well, it depends what you have, and if when you got it you tuned everything. They're fairly accurate, but they're definitely not going to be as accurate as a milling machine. But they're definitely not going to be a replacement for 6 drill presses or something like that, which a lot of guys think they are. You know, so where they shine is if you set it up to drill, chamfer, tap, and you could set one machine up to do 2 tap sizes, because you could put 2 tapping heads on one machine, one in 440 and one in 256, or you could have a separate machine, and then you have to have all the extensions proper and the heights. Like anything else, it takes a little bit of setup, and there's not a whole lot of literature on how to do it. So
yeah, that was my thing. Is when I bought it, I couldn't really find enough information. I was like, I'll just buy it and figure it out. But it was definitely one of those things where I just kind of really lost on the time of getting it. I kind of bought it and sold it for what I paid for it.
Yeah, you can get really good money for those. They're worth a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Keep the eyes open for one of those.
Is there anything? It's about it's that time we're gonna start wrapping up. Is there anything else you want to mention before we get to that? Well, let's get at that time to where we're about to start wrapping up. It says an hour and 30.
Yeah,
it's been that
in here,
huh?
Is there? We don't have to wrap up now. Just make sure, before. Yeah, is there anything else you'd like to mention? Some other shows? Anything else you're working on?
Yeah, I was going to see what your next show was. What's coming up for you?
What's coming up for me is going to be Blade Show. I'm already getting ready to start. I'll start on Blade Show knives probably next month. I know Nick likes to start 5 days before a show and stuff, but
hey, I make it every time though.
I know you do, but you don't.
I'm zombified on Friday. Yeah, I'm zombie on Friday, and then Saturday I come to life.
Yeah, and I'll have a booth, but I focus on bringing the best that I can bring to the show.
Dang it.
Well, my thing is I'll build them early sometimes, and then they'll sit around in my drawer. I'm like, oh, this is for a show. Yeah. And then I'll see a machine that I want to buy, or you know what? I should really get started on this early. I need to buy a bunch of titanium and water jet and all this. And I'll start this now, and then oh yeah, the show's in 2 weeks. I have half a knife ready on the bench.
Nice.
I need 10.
Half of one.
I don't even have pivot screws or bearings. I gotta figure this out. And somehow, the day before the show comes in, I'll build a 9 out of the 10 or something like that. It always works out. I never came empty-handed.
That's awesome. I just always want to be prepared. I don't ever want to.
Honestly, I think I like
That's
the
very
pressure.
professional of you,
I just
Jason.
Oh,
the pressure.
Or Nick, you could just like, if it doesn't work out one of these years, you just like sell IOUs or something.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
yeah,
I make you nice.
that would work. Yeah.
Interesting
I
concept.
feel like I remember at a show someone was selling essentially that.
I was gonna say you could sell
books guy.
Book
That's what it
you could sell tables. You could sell like order spots.
is. Yeah.
So like
Number 5.
Yeah,
Yeah, sell book spots. The show
that would go over.
with a rendering of what your knife might look like.
Hey, I think that's been done before.
Oh, it has.
Napkin drawings of knives.
But it's Elijah's career essentially.
Yeah, basically. Great. Good times.
He just sells his drawings of knives at shows.
Oh boy.
Hey, I don't start making the money until they start selling the actual physical objects.
Sure, guy. Sure.
So yeah, you only really do Blade Show in New York, right? I don't really see you. Well, I think have you gone to USN?
No, I mean I want to do more shows.
USN would probably be the best for your third show, I would say.
I do. My goal is to do 3 to 4 shows. I mean, my basic business model is I don't take orders for the most part. I build and make available as they're completed. And I do shows. I do whatever.
I like order books.
That I can do, and I understand that, and it has a place. It's just, it can be for me a little stressful because, like most people, I won't take a shortcut on anything. I mean, and
that's the way to do it too, I think.
And when you have the monkey of the book on your back, it's like you're like, oh, I got to grind this blade. He wants this kind of grind, and something goes wrong. Let's say now I got to reheat treat a blade, make a new blade, or something like that, and then that puts you behind, and it just is an extrapolating effect of disaster. So.
And when you don't have the books, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, man. I didn't like the books back in the day, and then until I realized, if I just make a nice spreadsheet of all the options and pricing, that made things a lot easier. It's like whatever's on the paper is what you get to choose. The price is there. Anything that's a one-off is for open sale. If it's on the books, you have to choose from these options.
Yeah, that's more effort than I'm willing to put into this. I just want to make things.
I just like to look
business, man.
If I could,
this man, I just like the ease. I could look at my books. Okay, I'll build these knives this week, and I know at the end of the week they're sold to these guys, and I'll have this much money.
Yeah,
and I have to it just makes me comfortable. And then in every batch, there's usually 1 or 2. Like I do batches of 10, and usually 2 of those are for open. So every 5th knife is essentially open sale, and that's where I'll go off the options. And I'll test out finishes or milling patterns or grind styles or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I totally appreciate that. I mean, I'm not saying books are bad. I'm just saying for me, it doesn't make me feel like the same as when I go to, because I'm very self-motivated as is, so I don't need anything pushing me. But just knowing that I owe somebody something is what is difficult for me to deal with, I think.
I got you.
Because I don't ever want to owe somebody something. It's just the way I am. And that's not saying there are occasions where someone will ask me, can you make me this knife? And if I can, I will, but I don't take any money from anybody until it's done.
What are you trying to say? You're like some kind of honest knife maker or something?
No, well, I definitely honesty is something that I put that I am, but I just, life happens. I wouldn't want something to happen and,
No, I get it. That, people never think it's possible, and we see it all the time,
Yeah. So, but,
So what's the best way? So you're saying you don't take orders; they're basically first come first serve. What's your preferential media of choice to find these knives? Instagram, Facebook?
So on Instagram, it's at Luma Blades, and on Facebook, it's in my group, Luma Blades Owners and Supporters. And I could always be emailed, and many people who weren't on the books that don't really use Facebook or anything, they say, if you have anything available that you think I might be interested, send me a picture, and I email them a picture.
Wow.
And shows also, or shows are definitely the fastest way if a show's close.
Nice. Okay. So definitely just like you just post them up there and people can just say, hey, I want that.
I'll post a picture, and then usually, like I said, I'm blessed in this way. Someone will message me, is this available? And, basically that's when it's either it is or it isn't,
I mean, that's awesome. You know what? That's straightforward. That's easy. That's you can do that.
The way it should be.
Yeah, that works.
That's not saying I'd never take book spots. There may come a time when I'll say, okay, I'm going to open up 10 spots, but it's never going to be, I'm going to take 100 spots again.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot of spots, to be fair.
It was, especially for someone who was just feeling everything out and learning everything,
Right, step by step.
And part of the reason too why I went from CNC to handmade is I firmly believe that there's no way that I could base my livelihood and business around a computer operated machine, because if that computer or that machine goes down, it's going to go down at the worst possible time, meaning either the part's not going to be available that I need, or I'm not going to be able to afford to fix it at that particular moment in time. So I felt anything that I've got to be able to keep the business going with or without that machine.
You hear that, Nick?
See,
that's not a bad way of looking at it.
This is where we have opposite philosophies. This is where we have different philosophies. In the last 4 years that I've owned my House, it's broken down 0 times.
Okay.
In the last 4 years, I have broken down a numerous amount of times.
Okay, that's fine, but
yeah,
we're talking about 2 different classes of machines, and ironically, my Tormachs they haven't really had any major issues that could be fixed, but I always knew that was always there, so I couldn't be like, oh, I gotta not work for 2 weeks because my machine is broken or something.
Yeah, I feel like it makes you once in a while want to pick up a mill just for that reason. It's like, because I still know how to make knives by hand, obviously. It's still where my roots are. I still grind them by hand. But I once in a while, I should pick up a mill just in case that goes down, because I can still make some knives. But the comfort in it never really ever breaking down is going to get to me one day. Thankfully, the reason I got a Haas is because they're only an hour away, and they'll come the same day.
Who do you use, Allendale?
Yeah,
they're awesome. They're really nice. But that was just always been my worry. And to be honest with you, I mean, I did have the Haas rep here figuring out I was going to buy a mini mill and get rid of my Tormachs and put it, but I elected not to do that because I felt that there's no way that I'd be able to keep that spindle running enough to justify the purchase of it. So, it's nice that I know how to do CNC. I do enjoy doing CNC, but at this point, I enjoy hand making more.
So I totally understand. I wish I was still able to hand make them and make a living.
It just gives me a little bit more versatility. What I lose for the ability to do 3D machining and crazy engraving and stuff like that, I make up for in doing on-the-fly changes to a design and stuff like that. And
it counts.
Yeah.
Minor adjustments, right? You can just go in there and swap it up.
and without having to go back and sit in CAD. I'm not the quickest. I'm pretty decent at CAD, but I'm not the quickest guy in it. So, and so there. That's just another reason that I just wanted to throw out there. Like I have no disdain. I have no disdain or anything for CNC. I think CNC is great. I just think, for me, I'm listen. When you stop enjoying it, you got to stop doing it, right? So you got to kind of do what you want. So, and up to this date, I don't feel like I've worked a day. So,
yeah, you got to manage what you love with what pays the bills.
Just roll with it.
There you go.
Yeah, the bills get paid.
Bills always get paid eventually.
They always get paid eventually at some point.
That's the thing.
Yeah. No, I got you. It's just funny. It's the first time I really thought about it. I was like, hey, the last 4 years, the house has never really broken down, but I've broken down many times.
You better knock on some wood tonight.
There you go.
Yeah, well, you're not, pumping the same things into the house.
I'm like,
you are.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What? Tooling costs.
What?
Tooling costs, my guy.
Yeah.
Good times. All right. I like it.
I think I got to make a sticker like that. In the last 4 years, the operator has broken more than the machine.
That's probably not a bad idea, actually. I could see those ending up on many a CNC.
Yeah.
Most likely. Possibly.
Bladeology merch. Check it out. We got stickers.
Yeah, right. Well, I don't know. I think that brings us to a good closing point. Jason, I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for being our first guest of 2020, this new insane decade that I can't believe we all just lived through and up until. We just launched the Bladeology website and Patreon last night at 3 a.m. I was awake trying to get it finished for this episode. So if you enjoy what Bladeology does and the content we have, check it out. Go to our website, join our Patreon. I got a bunch of different levels set up there, whatever works. Everything is much appreciated, and we can keep bringing you this awesome content. With that being said, I'm going to sign off from my side. This is Jeremiah with PVK. Thanks so much for listening.
Nick Chuperin of NCC Knives, and you can find me at nccknives.com or NCC Knives on Instagram.
Elijah Isham with Isham Blade Works. You can find me on Instagram at Isham Blade Works. Signing off.
Jason Luma with Luma Blades. You can find me at Luma Blades on Instagram. And thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it. Had a great time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, guys.
For more information regarding the show, please check out www.bladeologypodcast.com.